So Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Can you hear me? Oh, my microphone is okay. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Good. Okay. So how's everybody doing? Good. On scale of we're good. Okay. Good. So as I said, in our Torah portion today, as I said before we started reading, we read the famous story where Jacob, on his way, what was happening? Let's just remind ourselves, what was happening last week? What happened last week in the Torah portion? Shout it out. Yeah, Esau, right. Right, exactly. So Jacob stole the blessing from his father Isaac, and now Rebekah is protecting Jacob and saying, go out from your home here to protect him. So he's on his way. That's what's happening. He's on his way out. And he stops to sleep for the night on his way out. And he has this famous dream, right, about the angels going up and down a ladder. So let's just read here directly from the book of Genesis. I'll read, this is chapter 28. What page? It's the beginning of Vayetze. So if anybody finds the page, you can follow along. But I'll just read a few verses, so you can also just listen. Thank you, Sam. What page again? Okay, great. 166. Let me find it too, so that we're all on the same. So this is the very beginning of Vayetze. So I'll read from here. Jacob left Beersheba and set out for Haran. He came upon a certain place and stopped there for the night, for the sun had set. Taking one of the stones of that place, he put it under his head and lay down in that place. And here's the dream. He had a dream. A stairway was set on the ground, and its top reached the sky, and the angels of God were going up and down on it. Okay, now God speaks to Jacob in the dream, and that's what's happening in the next verses, all the way through this next paragraph. So you can read it quickly to yourself. And then I'm going to read out loud verse 16. So on the next page, the new paragraph, Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, surely the Lord is present in this place, and I did not know it. Shaken, he said, and here's this famous line. He said, Ma norah HaMakom hazeh. How awesome is this place? This is none other than the abode of God, and that is the gateway to heaven. Okay, so how awesome is this place? Ma norah HaMakom hazeh. This year, when I was reading this just this past week, I was thinking about how Judaism views different ways the concept of sacred place, Ma norah HaMakom hazeh, and sacred time and sacred text, and these different containers of the sacred. So first of all, just to go a little bit more deeply into the commentary on this verse, as you can imagine, there's a huge amount of commentary on the verse. And a lot of it has to do with the concept that when Jacob says, how awesome is this place, he's actually tapping, and this is this cool mystic sort of magical, he's tapping into the future ahead of him. This is what a lot of the rabbinic commentaries say, that he was in touch here with where the temple, again, in the future, was going to be. So I'm going to just read Rashi on this. Rashi quotes Genesis Rabbah, which is Midrash on the book of Genesis, and he says, he's quoting Midrash, he says, this ladder of the dream stood in Beersheba, and the middle of its slope reached opposite the temple from Genesis Rabbah. So you can imagine, so okay, actually it keeps going. For Beersheba is situated in the south of Judah, Jerusalem in the north of it, on the boundary between Judah and Benjamin. And Bethel in the north of Benjamin's territory. It follows, therefore, that a ladder, this is Rashi quoting, that a ladder whose foot is in Beersheba and whose top is in Bethel has the middle of the slope reaching opposite Jerusalem. So the rabbis amazingly, they're doing some math, and they're saying, okay, wow, so Jacob was actually opposite, like on earth, opposite where the heavenly temple is, and the slope of this ladder in the middle of it is right at Jerusalem. Okay, so very interesting, and very, very interesting, and there's this real focus on place here, and what I want to do is some exploration of how Judaism has evolved in its concept of sacred place over time. And so we're going to look at just a few things here, just explore. So first, what we're reading about here, of course, is before the time of the temples. And there's a lot of disagreement, of course, but people say this is the Torah time is either ahistorical or describes events that take place, between 1500 or 1200 BCE. Then we had temple-based Judaism, right? The first temple stood from, these are the general consensus date, from about 957 to 586 BCE. And the second temple from 516 to 70 CE. So that's the historical. And in that time, when the temples stood, Judaism was it was a place-based religion, right? It was a place-based religion. It wasn't yet rabbinic Judaism. It was priestly Judaism. And it was place-based. We took sacrifices to the temple. We say God resides in the Holy of Holies. Very different than what happened now, which is that the rabbis, before the second temple was destroyed, who were, of course, not in power yet, the priestly class was in power, but they began what we now view not as place-based Judaism, but instead text-based Judaism, the Mishnah, the Talmud. And when the temple was destroyed and we no longer had a temple, Judaism actually was able to survive because our texts are holy. Instead of having the temple, and the temple was destroyed, and then that was it for our religion could live on because of text-based Judaism. And this is what became central. And when we say we're practicing Judaism today, what we actually mean is we're practicing rabbinic Judaism. What the rabbis created, we're practicing rabbinic Judaism. And Shekhinah, just one more point, Shekhinah, God, the feminine side of God, is seen to have, in our exile from Jerusalem, there's this concept that Shekhinah came with us. This concept now, God is everywhere. Shekhinah is with us in wherever we go. And so now we have God sort of related more to the Jewish people than to the temple, or one central place. I also want to bring in some words of Heschel, Abraham Joshua Heschel, who we were looking for his book, but didn't find it, The Sabbath. Who's read his book, The Sabbath? Yeah, so maybe I can what does Heschel say? So Heschel brings in this really amazing concept, about the sanctity in Judaism of time. Do you want to say, Susanna, a little bit about, or anyone? Yes, the temple in space and time. So Shabbat is it's a day of the week. For example, he's saying it's a day of the week. It's a time, and that in Judaism serves as our holy, sacred temple, but it can be celebrated anywhere. It's not actually a place, it's a holiness of time. And he makes this pretty strong argument that some people disagree with, that actually Judaism values time he says values time as this sanctity of place, or more importantly. So that's very fascinating. He also, just to say, and if we can find the book, I would love to look at it with some people. He has at the very beginning, yes, Stephanie, you have? Ian might have it. Okay, that would be great. Because I was looking, that's fantastic. Because I was looking for this online and couldn't find, yeah. So he says that the first blessings that in the beginning of Genesis that God gives are to the days of the week. So it's like you'd think maybe it would be the first blessing would be to a holy place or a holy mountain, but that's not actually true. It's the first are to times, set times. So very interesting. So I want to take a minute to actually just ground us here in this place, right here in the HBT sanctuary, and to say, how holy is this place? Right? How holy is this place that we're in now? And I'm going to just invite everyone to just look around for a moment. Some of you have been in here probably 300 or more times, right? And some of you have been in here not as many times as that. I'm new to this space. Just want to invite everyone to just look around a little bit. And I want to invite just, before we end talking about this concept of sanctity of time and place, just invite in some noticings, people to say out loud, some noticings about this place that you're noticing in the physical room right now, or just some memories that have happened in this place, so that we can sanctify it in some sort of way. Just want to let's first invite just some things that people are noticing about this place in the room. Yeah, Ashley. Here, I'm going to give you the mic so that people on Zoom can hear.
I noticed two things that, for me, make this place holy. And it's not the physical building. It's the people that inhabit it. Because if this were empty of people, to me, it would not be a holy space.
Nice.
And the second thing, which is more historic than current, are the plaques, the light bulbs, the names, which I always check out.
Yes.
Make sure that I'm not up there. But those two things, the people in it and the representation of people who used to be in it, are the answer.
That's so beautiful. Thank you so much, Ashley. Thank you so much. Anyone else want to say? Yeah.
Well, just building on Ashley's, I was thinking about the time from the plaques, because some of the plaques are from Dorchester, Mattapan, and Beth Hillel, the antecedent of this. So in this very room, we don't just have the space, we have time, which is the time before us.
Nice.
And also where Larry grew up, my husband. So it brings so many things, and plus all these memories, which are many, I'm sure, among us.
Beautiful. You want to give to Marcy?
Yeah, my kids' bat mitzvahs. Yeah, too.
It's true, because I came from Mattapan, and
Talk into the mic, Marcy, so on Zoom they can hear.
I came from Mattapan, and my grandfather's here, a couple of my uncles,
Wow.
and it's like coming home.
Feels like
So
home.
it's important.
Beautiful. Anyone else? Yes, Stephanie.
I'm noticing now that because before with the pews, it seemed we were more closed in. And now it's so very open, and we can, it's more openness, and we can even reconfigure it and as we need, and we have.
Beautiful.
So it's just, that's what I saw.
It's beautiful. For those of you who don't know what Stephanie's talking about, before I was here, when was it? A couple years ago, 2019, this sanctuary used to have pews, and they were all taken down, and we replaced it with chairs, which is much more nimble for us to be able to work with.
So when you mentioned something that happened here, I was thinking not too far back on Simchat Torah, when we opened up a Torah, and I was just amazed at how perfectly it just fit in this room. It's like a Torah-sized room, and I imagine Torah filling the space.
Nice. Yeah. Thanks, Mark. Let's take Melissa. You'll be the last one. Let's hear from you.
Okay, my husband just said that he wanted to say something.
Okay, so both of you can. Yes, that's good. We'll hear from both.
He'll probably be briefer than I. Our last congregation was in Bethesda, Maryland, Adat Shalom, Reconstructionist, and when they built that synagogue, there was every single attention to detail regarding green and just everything. And it's just a magnificent building. And when we first walked in here, I thought, and the top, the ceiling was all white tents, sort of that were transparent, basically, that, so it wouldn't be too sunny or anything like that. But it was just magnificent. And when I first walked in here, I thought, this is it. This really obviously they really paid a lot of attention to detail, the architects and the board or whoever worked on it or anything. This just really feels like home also.
So glad you're here, Melissa. So glad you're both here.
Yeah, I was just going to add that we're on the opposite end of the spectrum, right? So we're brand new members.
Yeah.
We don't have any history or memories here yet, but hopefully in many years to come, we'll be able to have as many memories as you have.
It's a perfect thing to end with. Thank you so much and welcome. We're so happy to have you both here. So thanks, Mark. I'll just end by saying one more thing about the word makom, place in Hebrew, which is that HaMakom, the place, is also used as a name for God. And in many different places. And one place where it's used all the time is to comfort mourners. When we say, HaMakom yinachem etchem, May God, HaMakom, comfort you. And our sages say that this particular name for God signifies that everything is contained within God, that God is, somehow if you can imagine, it's a theological exercise, God is the place, that God is the place, HaMakom. So as we're thinking about our space here, of God being with us wherever we are, of place-based Judaism, text-based Judaism, holiness and time, I hope we can find just many, many, many ways to connect with that sacredness, even ways that come from different time periods where we're living now and to the time period that we're living in now. So Shabbat Shalom, everyone, and thanks for the exploration of holy place and holy time. Shabbat Shalom.